So one thing that I touched on earlier is working from home and parenting at the same time. So I think setting boundaries is super important to maintaining your own self-care and preventing what we're talking about today in burnout. So Michelle, I'm wondering, how can I draw better boundaries for myself when I'm at work and then transitioning to my home life, which right now I am working from home. So how do I set those boundaries?
It's a great question, Jeremy, and one that many people are asking themselves in today's environment. Prior to COVID-19, oftentimes you heard the term work-life balance come into play. And I've never really quite been a fan of the term balance because it kind of gives this preconceived idea that you can achieve this like perfect equilibrium of things happening with work and things happening with home. For me, I'm much more of an integrator, integrating my work and my life. But that's what works for me. And for other people, they're more segmenters. And really need those clear dividers, and have been particularly challenged in our remote work situation. Unfortunately, those who are working remotely, like us, I think all on participating today, are more challenged than ever to create boundaries. Working parents like you, but there's also single employees who don't have children, who don't have a spouse or partner, who I know are working a lot of hours because they just feel like there's nothing else to do, or just look at the clock and go, oh my gosh, it's already 7 or 8 o'clock at night, because their routines are different now. When your routines are not have changed as a result, it can make it more challenging to kind of create those boundaries for yourself. So I think it's really important when we're talking about your work and your life and the boundaries that you establish, to look at the routines that you are currently following. And there may not be many. I even know, as embarrassing as it sounds, some people have said to me, like, even their personal hygiene routine changed once we moved to COVID-19. They weren't showering as frequently or things like that. And that started to take a toll on not just their physical health, but their mental health as well. So really assessing your personal routine in the morning. I know Cornell Wellness recently had a virtual commuter challenge. And I think that the concept of that being, what is that routine in the morning that you are doing that kind of prepares yourself psychologically for the workday, and gets you moving? And I think that, I have a couple colleagues who actually go outdoors and take some laps around the neighborhood before they settle into their work first thing in the morning. And I think that can be really helpful as kind of a psychological transition really into work. I think we also have to really challenge our own thinking about what work we're doing, why, when, who we're interacting with. I know when I was a student and working full time as a single parent, had lots of different balls in the air that I was juggling, and my own perception of what success looked like really impacted what my day-to-day life was, right? Creating these expectations for myself that didn't always lead to the best health and well-being. So really assess what your thinking is right now about performance, and having those meaningful conversations with your supervisor about what's expected. We've been doing this, what, guys, 8 months, 9 months, something like that. It's a good time to do a self-check with yourself, but also check in with your family. Jeremy, in our previous conversations, you've talked a lot about you and your wife and balancing like childcare responsibilities and things like that. I think it's great for those that are in relationships to kind of talk about, hey, how's this working? And what adjustments do we need to make to better support each other? It can be really, really challenging to navigate this time without a partner who's just as committed to going through it together. I think, physical space is also very important. I know for myself, I relocated where my work space was after, I think, 5 or 6 months into the pandemic. And boy, I wish I would have done it earlier on. It really helped me establish some better boundaries for when I start work and end work. I think those are just a few of the things. Does anyone else have anything that they would want to add to that about work-life boundaries?
Yeah, I mean, I would just chime in that, it's important that we kind of set a schedule. Meaning, when we used to go into the workplace, you had a set time that, work would open up, but set time it closed. So if you can maintain a schedule where you try to be consistent, and honor that for yourself and say, you know what, 5 p.m., I'm not doing any more work. I mean, of course, depending on your job, there's certain responsibilities that you still will have to do. But what I would say is if it's something that doesn't have to be done that night, there's no emergency, there's no urgency, then perhaps, hold it off until the next workday, like you would have if you were going into work. And that also brings another important point. So I supervise other employees. So I'm cognizant of the fact that if I could potentially create an imbalance for them, because if I'm sending an email at 9:30 at night, even if I don't necessarily intend for them to respond, the fact that they received it means they may look at it. So as a supervisor, I think, and anyone in a supervisory role should be aware that, look, at this time where folks are always at work, because now, your home is the workplace, you want to actually also help to maintain those boundaries and, avoid doing things that are unnecessary. Meaning, if we were going to the workplace, if this is something you would have normally handled during normal work hours, don't necessarily now call them on their cell phone at home after hours to kind of introduce something. So I, try to make sure that I do that. But also, I think as employees, you're empowered to say something. Meaning, your boss or supervisor may not be aware that this is creating an imbalance for you. So, it's important to be aware that, hey, say something that, and kind of help to create the boundaries. Because some folks, and a lot of us, especially in healthcare, we're like type A personalities where we kind of keep going. And, and I find myself guilty where it'll be very late, 8, 9, 10 o'clock, and I'm still working. And I'm like, something, I need to go home, right? I'm already home, but, I need to go home now, right? So, that's just my advice, is to try to help tailor your schedules, tailor your work, and for us who supervise, tailor the work for employees in such a way where we can respect boundaries.
John, I really appreciate you saying that. And I think that, if someone is watching this right now and also saying, okay, I'm recognizing the signs of burnout, and I'm hearing what you're saying, and, workflow has changed for me because other things have changed. And maybe people are working more hours or less hours. And I'm recognizing this, and I want to talk to my supervisor about this. Michelle, are there tools? Is there advice that you have from a human resources perspective to share with people about how do I talk to my supervisor about this? Mm-hmm. What are some potentially solutions that are available to help me with navigating burnout?
Absolutely. I think open and authentic conversations between supervisors and employees is such an important part of being both productive and having a workplace where people are just effective and communicative. It's just really important. And I know a lot of supervisors at Cornell, I think several of us are supervisors, really care about the well-being of those that report to us. Some supervisors are more equipped to have these discussions than others. And so it's always good if you're a supervisor to ask for help on how to do that. And I'll make some remarks about that in just a second. But if you're an employee and you're wondering how to approach your supervisor or if to approach your supervisor, I do recommend it. But if you're not quite feeling comfortable about approaching your supervisor yet, you can talk to your human resources representative. You can talk to one of us on the Cornell Work-Life team. Our specialty areas relate to flexible work arrangements and work-life issues. We can help you think through what might make the most sense. And of course, you can speak with either a private counselor or someone with the faculty and staff assistance program. Part of workplace burnout prevention and then also navigating it is regularly engaging with your supervisor so that you understand what your priorities are and you can get your questions answered and discuss your concerns. The reality is burnout negatively affects our productivity. It just does. So it is a concern for managers as well as employees. I know sometimes when you're an employee and another task is being asked of you or another project is being added, it can feel really overwhelming. In that scenario, if you don't feel like you have the bandwidth, talk to your supervisor about what other aspects of your work maybe can sit to the side while you're working through whatever that new project might be. Rather than having a knee-jerk reaction of, I can't take any more, this is an opportune time to talk to your supervisor about just all that you have in front of you and what is the highest priority both for your department and for the university. So having those open conversations are pretty critical. I think, the other thing that I often see at Cornell is sometimes we confuse speed versus precision. Sometimes a project, the turnaround time is really critical, but the precision of it is not as important. If we spend a lot of time trying to perform so perfectly that we can't turn things around quickly, or we're trying to turn it around quickly while also being perfect at it, it can be really overwhelming. Other times that precision is really important, but we're working so fast that we're not being as thoughtful as we need to be with what we're creating or what we're doing. So understand what the deliverables are, ask questions so that you can spend the appropriate amount of time with that particular project or assignment. Now, I do think it is critical that we all practice taking time off. Taking time off right now feels different than it felt prior to COVID-19. It just feels different. Talk to a lot of people who say, I'm not going to take time off because what's the point? There's nowhere to travel, or I can't travel. The types of things that I normally would do no longer feel safe. Or if I can't take a solid 2 weeks off right now because of work, then I'm not going to take any time off. I really encourage you to broaden your thinking about the importance of taking time off and how you go about taking it. I know when we were just starting, Jeremy, you mentioned that you were going to be taking a half a day today to really incorporate some well-being time for yourself after a pretty intense week. Even just those small chunks of time can be pretty helpful. You might feel like, I don't want to take time off because I'm just going to come back to more work. When you fall into the trap of thinking that way, it can really hinder your own well-being and lead to burnout. The work will be there, but your well-being matters, and your ability to perform well in the future is partly driven by how well you've taken care of yourself leading up to it. So a couple other strategies. For some folks, flexible work arrangements can be a great way to modify both work time schedule and workload. WorkLife does offer consultations on how to go about requesting flexible work arrangements. You can call 255-1917 or email worklife@cornell.edu to request a consultation. If you are in a pretty serious situation and in need of time away to cope with mental health issues, leave from Cornell may be appropriate, a medical leave of some kind. I do encourage you to talk to your physician about that and what might be the most appropriate. Cornell Medical Leaves Administration can also guide you. Their telephone number is 255-1177. Earlier, I mentioned that as a supervisor, you might be concerned about the well-being of somebody on your team. Whether you're in a supervisory role or it's just one of your coworkers, it is good to express your concern to them. Share what you've noticed. Share the changes in behavior that you've noticed. Share what resources are available and listen. Remember, you are not responsible for fixing all the personal life issues that somebody else is experiencing or struggling with, but you can be a caring individual that responds to what you see. And if your concern is serious, you can contact the Faculty and Staff Assistance Program for guidance on how to approach this with the person that you're concerned about. We've had a great conversation today about burnout, what it is, how it shows up, what we can do about it. Folks, do we have any parting thoughts for our listeners?
Yeah, I would just say stay well, stay positive. If you do have any questions or concerns about the resources for employees at Cornell, you can reach out to the occupational medicine department. If you need accommodations for medical concerns related to burnout or workplace, we have the medical leaves department that you can also reach out to.
Yes, I would also like to chime in and say that, we've talked a lot today about how physical activity, having proper nutrition, what that does to your mental well-being, and how that can go into burnout. So I would say if you have any fitness or nutrition needs, please feel free to reach out to myself or Cornell Wellness as a whole. We'd be happy to have an individual consultation with anybody.
I would love to say that your mental well-being matters. You must take care of yourself so that you have the capacity and the ability to take care of all the others that are so important to you in your life.
I suppose my parting thoughts are that the winter months are here, they're coming, but they're really here. It's a good time for us to reflect, to rest, and to rejuvenate. And I encourage everyone to really take that time to reflect on all that 2020 has encompassed for us and what we want for our time now and moving forward. So thank you for listening and enjoy your day.